Hello, this is Ty again from Mobile Inventor, and today we'll go over managing your content. And take a little bit longer than some of the other videos, but this is an important part, obviously, of the dashboard. You can change basically any of your content anytime you want. Before we go over the content, go over a few other things the dashboard can do. We've already talked about previous calls, app users, so we'll skip that. Punch cards, we won't go into this in detail, but if you do use Jackrabbit, you can sell your cards in the app, and it really does reduce the administrative cost of that. And we go over that in detail under how to use here. This will just take you to your help documentation, and we talk about how to set up a punch card. Now, the punch cards are available for anyone. It's just that with Jackrabbit, we have a little bit more functionality that makes them more valuable to you because you don't have to sell them yourself. Photos. This is a section of your dashboard that if people send you a photo through the app, they go here. And they are copies of the original. So typically they are pretty high resolution photos. And you can see that you have two sections here: photos awaiting your approval and photos approved to show in the app. So if a parent sends you a photo, they go here. You're the only one that can see them. And you can choose what to do with those. You can download them, just delete them. Or you can select that photo and click approve, and it will go into your photos approved to show in your app. Now, parents can see those photos by going to the menu. At the top, there is a user gallery icon they can click on to see photos. You can see that in the documentation under user submitted photos here. And here's the upload icon, and here's the user gallery icon. Users, this is your dashboard users. This is where you would go just to manage anyone that has access to your dashboard. If you are planning on allowing more than yourself to access your dashboard, then please create a new user for them. It allows us to know who's using the dashboard. If there's an issue, we are able to track it down to a person so we can figure out what happened. You also can cause some issues with the content if you have two people logged in with the same ID. To create a new user, you just click add new user here, and you'll set their information, including their password. They can change it once they've logged in. And then you can decide what that person can do. We have a lot of customers that allow their coaches to send notifications. And in that case, you might want to say all they can do is send pushes. If you want them to be able to do everything, then just make them an admin. Okay. Let's go over to statistics. So this is where you go to understand who's using your app, how they're using it, really just to give you an idea of how your app is doing. And right now, this particular app, it hasn't been out for but a few days. And so when you go over this, you're not going to see a lot of downloads yet. There are 4 different numbers. I'm not going to go into that in this call. The best thing for you to do, and I really do recommend it, is go to help. And there's about a 10 to 15 minute video where I walk you through all of those numbers. Okay, let's get over to content. Okay, so app content, this is where you go to manage whatever people see in the app. Now, there are some things that are not changeable. For example, you can't change the icons that show at the bottom, nor can you change what would show up here at the top of the menu. It doesn't even show in your dashboard, but it is there in the app. There are some options there. And I won't go over every single piece of content and how you can manage those. Most of them are fairly simple. However, we will go over, basically understanding what you're looking at here, just enough to get comfortable with it so you can come in here and play with it yourself. And we'll also talk about the most used content in the app, and that is pages. And pages are the most complex. So if you can understand those, the rest is a piece of cake. So when you go into content, over here you see an app. Now it's not necessarily your app, it's just a copy of it. And the reason we have this here, and it's not perfect, by the way, in comparison to your app, it won't have every single thing in there, and it will behave a little differently. The point here is, well, it's really twofold. One is so that you can navigate to different parts of the app just differently, same way you would do it in the real app. For example, I can click on classes, and it takes me to another page. The other is to see changes as you make them. It's a lot easier to make a change, see what it looks like, and that way you can have confidence that what you put out in the app is what you wanted it to look like. So you can see that in the app, you can navigate through it. And when you navigate, let me just go back home and I'll click classes. It will change to whatever content you're going to, but at the same time, it will change this content settings tab up here. It will make that active, and whatever you're seeing here is the settings for what you're looking at on the left. Now, sometimes content is something that really can't really show inside of the app. For example, if I click on Infinity Tots and then go to classes and then click on register, well, in this case, it's showing class openings. Let's find something else that I might call us, okay? So in this case, the call feature, call content, really, we don't show that in the app viewer, so you'll see something like that, but you can see the settings for it are really simple, it's just a telephone number. And so some content, you'll have more options, especially on pages. So if I go back to that contact us page, you can see there's a lot more here to manage. And we'll go into pages in detail here in a second. Now this app menu tab over here, this is how you control what is seen in the menu. So if we go here and here, you can see that these two guys match each other. It is configurable. These blue headings right here, you can add those, you can move them around. You can also add items to the menu and you can move those around. So to move things, you put your mouse on a row, click, and you can drag it. And you can see that when I make a change in the dashboard like I just did, there is a blue Save Changes button. If you click that, of course, it will save your changes. If you're trying to learn how to use the dashboard, I would just come in and do what I'm doing, play around with it, just get used to it. And when you're done, just don't save your changes. You can click any of these tabs and it will allow you to throw away your changes. The one exception to that is after 10 minutes of inactivity. So let's say you make some changes and you go to get a cup of coffee. After 10 minutes, it will save your changes for you. So just be aware of that. To make changes to your menu other than moving them around like we've done, you can also click on any empty space on a row and you'll have some options. You can change what is there to something else. You can add headings. And you can also move that heading around if you wanted. And you can click here again, and you can add menu items underneath whatever is there. So you can add something else. Okay, so this can be as small or big as you want. Okay, so we've already talked a little bit about content settings, but let's talk about some things that are common no matter what kind of content you're looking at. So if you're looking at a page like we are here, you can see it has a lot of things to manage versus if I were to look at the call us content, it's very simple. All it has is a phone number. But all content has some things in common. A delete button to delete that content. And if it's, by the way, if you delete it and it's referenced by a button somewhere in the app or it's in the app menu, it will remove it. So you have your name, and this name is important as it is what shows in the heading. So if I were to change this, you can see that it changes there. If it's on the menu, it will also change that. So you can see it's changed there as well. The description, this does not show in the app. This is just for you. Most likely you won't use this, but there may come, and it really depends on how much content you have, where you might have things that are named the same. The most common is if you do sessions, you might have a fall and a school session, or a school session and a summer session. The classes may be named the same, and so you might want to put fall or summer here, or something like that. And the most important part, and this is where people get confused sometimes, is this used by. And what this is telling you is that currently the only way to get to this particular piece of content, this page, is from the main menu. Now, in this case, this page is the first thing in the main menu, so that's what shows when you open up the app. But for example, if we go to holiday programs, you can see that that is used on the main menu and from the home page. And if we click on home and go back here, you can see that it's right there. So you can have multiple places in the app that reference one thing. You might have a call button, multiple places in the app, and it may all go to the same actual number. And in that case, you just see a list of the places that use your particular piece of content. If it's blank, so if you come here and it says used by and there's nothing there, then that means there's no way for a parent to get to it. And we designed it that way on purpose. So when you add brand new content, it's not available to your parents in the app. You have to tell the app where people can find it. Sometimes you may want it on your menu. On other times, it may be a page that's about specific classes. That's the only way you can get to it is from another page, like a programs page. In that case, you'll need to make sure that it's either AO in your menu or linked or referenced by a button. So in the app, there's really are only two ways to navigate through different parts of the app. That is through buttons here, like this, or by clicking on something in the menu, like that. And again, this is another example. This says used by Infinity Kids and main menu. So you can actually click on these to go back to the source. So if I click on this one, you can see that that's the page that's referencing it. I click on classes, takes me right back. And this page is referenced by the classes page. And I click on that, you can see that, and this one's referenced by home. You can see you can create a nice tree of content that allows parents to easily get to where they're going. Okay, so like I said, in a minute, we'll talk about actually managing pages, which you'll probably, should represent about, on average, it's about 70% of the content for most apps, once you've kind of got it to where you want. If we click on your content, this is just another way of getting to the content in your app outside of using this app viewer over here. We've grouped it by the type of content again. And so you can see like there's one call-ups and there are other class openings. The class openings are a way of presenting a smaller set of classes to a parent. And typically you might have a page that, for example, if I click on classes here, let's say I want Infinity Kids, and then I can click classes here, and I can choose what level, and there might be a description for that over here. And if I click register, it takes me to a list of classes, and you can see it's fairly small. There are only 4 or 5 of those. This particular class opening that we're looking at is Jackrabbit. So if you don't have Jackrabbit, you won't see something like this. We do have this for Studio Director. It looks a little different, and the selections here are different. It's all based off of the different filters that parents can select from outside of the app when they're on the parent portal. We allow you to just pick which filters you want. Let's say you wanted a different, granted, this is Jackrabbit, so if you don't use that, you might just ignore this for just a second. I can choose from what category. And once I've chosen all of that, I can then click submit and it will rebuild that list on the left. Studio Director works in a very similar way. The filters are just different. Now, one thing about Studio Director, if you want these class openings to show in your app, let's say that your app doesn't have them in there, then you'll need to change something called, well, I don't know what DECA is called, but it's the schedule that parents see when they go to the parent portal when they're trying to find a class. Typically, the default for that is a calendar view. And in my mind, it's a little bit overwhelming to try to find a class from that calendar view. You can change that to what Studio Director calls a list view, and it presents it in a list of classes instead of a calendar. If you want to be able to use these class openings in the app, if you're a Studio Director customer, you'll need to have it changed to a list view. Otherwise, it won't work right. And if you have any questions about that, just let us know. Okay, so we went a little deeper into a specific piece of content. And again, if you're trying to learn how to work these, just come and play with the different categories. You should recognize everything that shows here. Just make sure you click submit. You can sort the results by different fields, and then you can also hide information that's showing. Let's say you don't want the instructor to show, or the number of openings, things like that. Okay, so we go back to your content. You can see that this app has class openings, directions, email, some external links, all things that are very simple to use or to manage, and then we have pages. By the way, when you have content in your app that is not being used, remember that the used by is blank. You will see when looking under your content, you'll see a little red triangle. If you put your mouse over that, it'll say the feature's not being used yet. Remember, in order to get direct parents to, in this case, this one, you would need to either put it on your menu or reference it by a button on a page. And we'll show you how to do that here in just a sec. Okay, so just as a review, we've talked about the menu, how to manage that. We've talked about content settings in general, just some of the things that are consistent no matter what kind of content you're using or editing. You have your content to get to, just a different way to get to your content. You have a section called Your Files, and this is just the ability to upload PDFs or videos, and you can then reference those in the app. So I'll go ahead and actually upload a test videos for us to use in a little bit. Give it just a minute. Okay, so you can see that video is here, and you can always copy a link to that video, and we'll use this here in a minute. So let's talk about adding content. If I click add content, you'll just choose what kind of content you want. In this case, we'll just create a page. And when you create a new page, you can see on the left, it's just a blank page. We'll give it a name. Let's say we'll call this team. So for some content in the app, you can pass protect it. So let's say that I wanted that in there. So if I, as a parent, try to access this page, if I've never entered in the password correctly, it will ask me to enter it in. It's a one-time password. So once you've done it right, you won't have to enter it in again unless you come here and change the password. On the background, you can change the color of the background, and you can also control the image that shows here. This particular app does have a background image. You can see it. And if you click the image button here, you can select from other backgrounds that you might want to show. So I could, for example, show this one. A note about background images is that we can't fit an image perfectly on every screen. There are just too many different screen sizes. And so what we attempt to do is to fit as much of it as possible onto the screen and then center it. So most likely you'll have parts of the left, like this image, and right, and bottom and top that are going to get cut off just depending on how small the screen is. So if you're going to use images, you really should use something that you're okay with different parts of it being cut off. It doesn't make a difference. That's why images like this are great, because it doesn't really matter. Now you can also change, now we were showing you how to select from one. You can also upload a background image, and that will go to your gallery to use later, or you can remove what background image is currently there. And if I click that, you can see it goes to a white background. You can control that color either by using the color code. Now we support two different kinds. One's called RGB. And so that's a set of four numbers. Or what is most commonly used on the internet is hex colors. And once you get through entering that in, it just converts it to an RGB value. So if you know your codes and you want to put that here, you can just simply just put in your hex value, or you can click this color tile here and change the color to what you want. Okay, so for our case, let's go ahead and put back our background image. So if you have a background image that has transparency in it, the background color will show through. So for example, we should have something like that here. We'll just use this logo. Now the logo doesn't fit perfect. We already talked about that, but in this case, this logo has a lot of transparency in it, and you can see that this color shows through. You can do some interesting things with that if you are inclined to do that. Let's go ahead and put this back. Okay, this next part here, this is a table that contains the content for the page. The way we manage pages is through content boxes. And so you can have one box or you can have 30 boxes. It really just depends on what you're trying to do. A box can be a button, or a box can just have text, images, or video in it. So we do it that way because it's very flexible. You can drag and drop the boxes around. You can change the color scheme of each one. And again, you can make one into a button and one not. So to add a button or a box, you just click this plus here. When you do that, it will create a default or a brand new box up there at the top. The color of this will be based on the default that we set up for your buttons. If you're trying to do something other than a button, you might want to change the color of that, and I'll show you how in a second. But in this case, we'll just go ahead and create a button. So you can see the editor is opened up over here. For buttons, we use a format of heading 3. You're welcome to use whatever you want. And in this case, we'll set the color to white. We'll click done. So right now, that's just a box and really doesn't do anything if you click on it. In this table below, you can see that we have this one row that's for the one that we just created. To make it into a button, you use this second column that says when clicked. If it says not set, that means it's not doing anything. We can click on this and then change it to, we can point it to somewhere in the app. When we do that, it puts an arrow there. And so now if I were to click on this, it takes me to the email us part of the app. And you can see that in the used by, we have main menu, contact us, and our team page. Okay, so let's create another box. This case, let's put some content, some actual text. I don't like, personally, text that's on colored pages. To me, it's just easier to read on a white background, black text. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll click done and close the editor. When you have an empty box up there, it will look like this. Won't have anything in the name. You can always click on it to reopen up the editor. In this case, I'm going to put a check right next to that one. And when you do, you can change the background color of that particular box. I'll change it to white. You can also change the border if you wanted to. You can see now we have a blue border. And you can change some other things like the radius of the border, which just makes it more round or more square, and then the width. Okay. And in our case, it really doesn't matter. We'll just leave it like that. Now we can open up this editor and put in our content. So let's go over to our website here, and let's say we just want to cut and paste. And we'll put that here. This editor is pretty good at matching the format of your content, but sometimes you will have to delete some of the spacing just to get things to look right. Okay, let's say that we wanted an image. Well, first of all, let's make this a heading. It's a little big. And we can center it. And if you want an image that you didn't copy and paste, you can click this image icon right here. You can either browse from images that you already have available. You can upload one, or you can use one on the web. So in this case, we'll just browse from our gallery. When you select an image, it will tell you what the width and height are. I prefer to set this to 100. It just makes managing it in the editor a little bit easier. And we'll center it. As you can see it right there. If you want to manage the size of that, let's say you want to make it bigger, at the bottom right of that image is a handle for you can click and make it either smaller or bigger. And then at the top left is a handle to move it. Now there's some other things that you can do. You can insert YouTube or Vimeo videos. And if we click here, you just need to know the embed code. For YouTube, you can also just put in the URL of the video. If you have a video that you've uploaded, so in other words, it's in your dashboard like we did before, like your files here, we uploaded that video. If you want that to be used on, let's say, our team page, you would come over here and copy the link, go back to the settings for the page, and we'll open up that box right there and just decide where you want it. Okay, right there. Instead of this YouTube icon, you use the one right next to it. I'm not sure what that's supposed to look like, but I can't tell. And we'll paste that in, and it will embed that video for you. Okay, and before I forget, let me go and delete this video real quick. Okay, so going back to our page here, you can see now that we have two things, and you can see those represented here. You can drag and drop these. So let's say I want the button to be at the top, I can do that. See, it moves it. You can also do mask changes. So if you select here, this will select all of your content. You can see them selected here, so that you can change the background all at the same time if you wanted to. Same thing goes with the borders and some of the other attributes. Now in this case, this particular app is using a background image. And so let's go to another piece of content real quick. You can see the background image through these buttons, and that is because if you look at the background, we've set the transparency. That's that last number that shows right there. In this case, they're all set to 0.69. So that just means, 0 means they're completely transparent, 1 means they're not transparent at all. You can control that by clicking on the color. The third column right here is what controls transparency. So if I were to select all of these and go to backgrounds, you can see that as I move it, they become more or less transparent. So this is not something you most likely will deal with, but if you are using background images, you can create a cool effect like this, where you can kind of sort of see through the button, but not all the way, or through the box, but not all the way. Okay, so we talked about the biggest things in the dashboard. Like I said before, most likely you will have a lot of pages, or that will consist the majority of your content. Now, there is a downside to having pages in the app. One is, let's say, this page. It has a small class description, an image. Let's say that you change that page on your website. Well, your dashboard does not sync with the app, or the app does not sync with your website. So if you change it on your website, you'll need to come and change it here. Now, that's not hard in my opinion, but I've used the dashboard for a long time. But once you get used to doing it, you should be able to do that rather quickly with just doing a copy and paste. So that is the downside. You do have to manage both parts. If you don't want to do that, you might want to consider, instead of having a page, just click add content and create a link. Now, a link is very simple. You'll just put in the location, the URL of your website that you want them to go to. And that way, you update it on your website. You don't have to worry about it here on the app. The downside to this is that it's not as nice. So if I'm in the app and I click on a button that is going to a link, instead it will open up a browser window still attached to the app. I can just click done and it will take me back to the app. But it's obvious that it's taking me to your website instead of being in the app. You'll just have to decide, you know, here's a page I change a lot and I really don't care if it goes to my website. So in that case, I'll just create a link. Or you may just want to make sure everything is a page. More work on the back end, but in my view, it's worth it. Okay, so like I said, there are other types of content. These are all really simple to use. If you get stuck on something, you can always go to the user guide or the help center and go to managing your content. And if you click on changing or adding new content, we go over every single one, every single type of content. And, you know, actually, I forgot, there is a new type of content that we just added. And let me show you real quickly how to do that. I'm going to go here and just throw away my changes. As we mentioned before, the main way to navigate is through the menu or through buttons. And you'll see in your app that you have some that look like this, where it really is just a page of buttons. And so we're wanting to replace this with a pop-up menu. And so that is now there. You can create it's called chooser menu. And we actually may change the name of this to pop-up or something else, but you'll see it right at the top. And we'll click add content, chooser menu here. This will create just a basic pop-up menu. Now, right now, there's nothing on that. So let's add an item to that menu. And let's say that we want it to go straight to class opening, extreme tumbling. Continue. Okay, that will add an item to your menu. You can see it right here. Let's add a few more. So let's do extreme boys. And one more. You can also put a description that will show underneath your menu item, right there. Okay, so let's call this extreme classes. I can type. So right now we just have a menu. It's not used by anything. So right now nobody can access this. Let's go to our home page and add a button or box here. We can call it Stream Classes. Okay, so what you normally would do is change this to a button that goes to a page that shows, like I was saying before, a page that just shows a lot of options. The new way to do this is to point it to that menu that we created. First of all, let's move this down a little. Okay, so you can see our box right here. I'll click Not Set to point it to something, but instead this time I'll point it to my menu instead. Now here it looks the same, but when you click on this from the app, it will show the pop-up instead. And then I can click on any of these to go straight there. So just again, it's a way of going away from this, a page that acts as a menu, to a pop-up menu like that. We think this is better, but again, it's really just your preference. Okay, there's a couple more things I want to show you before we're done. And so I'm going to get out of this app. There are two apps I really do think that you should download, primarily because they've been with us for a long time and they do a great job with push notifications and managing their content. Now, if you're dance, both of these are gymnastics. It really doesn't matter. It really just shows you what you can do with the app, but I'll show you some dance ones too, or if you're swim. The first one you should download is Baron Gymnastics. It's with 2 R's. Make sure you type in gymnastics if you're looking in the App Store. They were one of my first customers. They do a fantastic job with their notifications. And they're one of the customers that we used, that we noticed had a really good, solid audience. And one of the things they do is they send notifications a lot. So if you go to sent scheduled pushes, you'll see that they're sending, they've sent 3 in October, and they've sent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in September. So anyway, for this one, download the app, open it on your phone at least one time so you're registered for the push notifications. So you can just get an idea of what they're doing. Now, another one is called, and I believe I'm pronouncing this right, Altius. It's Altius Gymnastics. These guys do a great job with their notifications, but one thing they do is they change their content a lot. And they also use, you can see their content looks totally different. They use images a lot for their buttons. So instead of buttons like, regular standard text buttons like these, and which I was showing you how to create those earlier, you can create one that is an image like this. So I wanted to show you real quickly how to do that. It's very simple. Now you'll create the image outside of the dashboard. So most of my customers that are doing this are using Canva, which is C-A-N-V-A. You can find that online, but there are a number of other programs we can create images like this that have text on top of them. So to do this, you create a box or you edit an existing box that's, say, a button already. And in this case, their background's white. I'm going to close this and just change it to something else that we can see what happens here. Reopen that box. So instead of typing your text, you would just choose your image. They've already got it in there, so I will just choose from here. And like previously, just make that image kind of small to start off with. And it's important for these to make sure that you center it. Okay, do that. Now you'll see the image there, and the dashboard knows as you start to resize this, at a certain point, it will know what you're trying to do. So if we click that handle at the bottom right and expand enough, to make it big enough, it will take up the entire box over here. So we'll click done. So right now it's more of a banner. It's really just a box with an image in it. To make it into a button, we click here and we go point it somewhere. Now, when we do that, it's now a button, but it has an arrow and this background image. Those two together along with the image just really don't look that good. So that's where this third column comes into play. And so I can hide the arrow and now it's an image button. So pretty simple. So if you're interested, we can also take a look at a few others that have done this to the extreme. This is a dance studio. If we go to their content, you can see that they have created custom images for each one of these. And their contact us, which I think is cool. Okay, well guys, I appreciate your time, and hopefully I've gone over most things that you find important to you. If you haven't had a takeoff call with us and you've already watched these videos, please schedule just to be able to ask any follow-up questions and you know, really just have a chat about whatever you want. As a reminder, with your support, with our support comes the ability to send us an email anytime and or call us. Our support email is support@mobileinventor.com. Our telephone number is 281-378-2122. Again, that's 281-378-2122. And you know, it's more than just bug fixes or something isn't working. If you need online training, we'll do a Zoom session with you. If you need training of different staff members, we can do that as well. Right, well, we'll talk to you guys soon.